Rowan liked the night shift. The research vessel Horizon Star was quiet during these hours. Most of the crew were asleep, and the soft hum of the ship's engines filled the air like a gentle song. The observation deck, with its wide glass panels, was his favorite place. Out here, the stars felt close, like he could reach out and touch them. He leaned against the railing, a mug of warm tea in his hands. Outside, space was still and endless. Sometimes, in moments like this, Rowan felt like the only person alive in the galaxy. Then, without warning, the silence broke. A faint metallic hiss echoed from the docking bay doors behind him. Rowan straightened. The ship wasn't scheduled to receive any visitors tonight. The hiss was followed by the slow sound of the airlock cycling open. His brow furrowed. There hadn't been any announcement from the bridge. He placed the mug down and walked toward the docking corridor. The bay lights were dim, only the emergency strips along the floor glowing softly. A thin mist clung to the air, the kind that appeared when a ship's atmospheric seal had just been broken. The docking ramp was lowered, and a small shuttle sat at the far end. Its hull was scratched, as if it had traveled through debris. Then he saw her. A small figure stepped unsteadily out of the shuttle. She moved slowly, almost stumbling, her silver cloth robe catching the light as it swayed. Her hair, pale as moonlight, spilled over her shoulders. She stopped halfway down the ramp and lifted her head. Two large, luminous eyes met Rowan's. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, deep, shimmering, almost like liquid crystal. She looked frightened, but there was something else in her gaze, relief. Before Rowan could speak, she hurried forward. Her steps were clumsy, but she kept coming until she reached him. Without hesitation, she wrapped her arms around him. Rowan froze. Her touch was light, but desperate. She was trembling as if she had been running for days without rest. Rowan glanced around. The bay was empty. No one else had seen her arrive. The ship's internal alarms hadn't gone off, which made no sense. "Hey." "It's okay," Rowan said softly, unsure if she could even understand him. "You're safe here." She didn't reply. Her face pressed against his chest, and he could feel her uneven breaths. It wasn't just fear, it was grief. Something had broken inside her. Rowan slowly placed his hands on her shoulders, trying to make sense of what was happening. Her robe was made of fine material, woven with delicate patterns. He could see faint symbols stitched in gold thread, symbols that didn't belong to any human culture he knew. She was clearly not from Earth, and probably not from any human colony. Finally, she pulled back slightly, enough to look at him again. She said something. A string of soft, flowing words. The language was musical, but unfamiliar. Rowan shook, his head gently. "I don't understand," he admitted. She tried again, this time pointing toward the wide observation window that looked out into space. Her hand trembled as she gestured. Then she placed her palm over her chest. Her lips trembled. As more words escaped, faster now, as if time was running out. Rowan wished he could understand. The only thing clear to him was the urgency in her voice. The ship's comm system suddenly crackled to life. A calm, authoritative voice from the bridge said, "Attention crew. Unidentified vessel detected approaching at high speed. All personnel, stand by for security protocol." Rowan's eyes widened. He glanced at the girl. She was already shaking her head violently. She said something again, pointing toward the unseen ship beyond the glass. The look in her eyes wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something that chilled Rowan's stomach. Desperation to warn him. The docking bay doors behind them slid open, and two security officers stepped in, holding scanners. "Technician Rowan," one of them said sharply, "step away from the unidentified passenger." "She's not dangerous," Rowan replied quickly. That's not your decision," the officer interrupted. "Move aside, now." Rowan hesitated. The girl clung to his arm, refusing to let go. Her grip was surprisingly strong. The officers advanced, their scanners beeping as they detected non-human biosigns. "She came here alone," Rowan insisted. "She's scared, and I think she's trying to warn us about something." "Noted," the officer said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "She'll be taken to Med Bay for scans and translation. You're to remain here." The girl's eyes darted between Rowan and the officers. She took a step back, still holding his arm, as if afraid they'd drag her away. Then she spoke a single word. A word Rowan couldn't understand, but it was sharp, almost pleading. Rowan's chest tightened. Something told him she wasn't just another lost traveler. There was purpose in her arrival. And danger closing. The officers tried again to separate them, but before they could, the entire docking bay shook. A deep, low rumble echoed through the floor, followed by the ship-wide alarm. The bridge's voice returned, louder this time. "Incoming unidentified vessel now on direct intercept course. All crew to stations." The girl turned her head toward the sound, and a tear slipped down her cheek. Without thinking, Rowan put himself between her and the security team. Whatever was out there, whatever had brought her here, it was already too close. The docking bay was still trembling when the emergency shutters began to lower over the wide observation windows. Red warning lights pulsed along the walls, and the air felt heavier, as if the entire ship was holding its breath. Rowan's eyes stayed on the girl beside him. She hadn't moved from his side. Her fingers still gripped his arm, though her hand trembled. The security officers stepped forward again. "We need to move her now," one of them said, voice firm. "She'll be safer in Med Bay." Rowan glanced at the girl. "It's okay," he told her gently, even though he didn't know if she understood. "They just want to help." But her reaction told him otherwise. She shook her head quickly, her hair swaying. Her eyes grew wider, and she tightened her grip until Rowan could feel the pressure in his arm. Then she spoke, a series of soft, urgent words that rolled like water over stones. Rowan couldn't understand the meaning, but he understood the feeling. "Don't go." The officers tried again, reaching for her, but the ship-wide comm interrupted. Bridge. "To all decks. Unidentified vessel now within 20,000 kilometers. Energy readings indicate high-powered weapon systems active. All defensive protocols engaged." Rowan felt the girl flinch at the words, even though they were in English. Somehow she seemed to know exactly what they meant. She released Rowan's arm just long enough to point toward the stars beyond the sealed shutters, then back to herself, then to Rowan. Her gestures were sharp, deliberate. You're trying to warn me?" Rowan guessed. Her eyes lit with a flicker of hope that he understood at least part of it. She nodded quickly, repeating the gesture. Stars herself, Rowan. And then she tapped the floor beneath her feet twice. The security officers exchanged a look. "She could be signaling a meeting point for her people," one said. "We can't risk." The docking bay lights dimmed again, and the sound of the ship's engines deepened. The Horizon Star was shifting to battle mode. A voice came through. The comm, louder this time. "Unidentified vessel. This is Captain Loran of the research vessel Horizon Star. You have entered restricted space. State your intentions or be escorted out." No reply came. The girl's breathing quickened. She reached into the folds of her silver robe and pulled out a small metallic disc, no larger than Rowan's palm. Its surface was smooth except for a single glowing line that pulsed like a heartbeat. She pressed it into Rowan's hand. "What is this?" Rowan asked, but she simply closed his fingers around it and gave a slight shake of her head, as if telling him to keep it hidden. Before he could ask again, the ship's translator unit, carried by one of the officers, beeped softly. The device had begun trying to identify her language from the sounds she had made. The officer tapped the translator's side, and a synthetic voice spoke. "Language. Partial match. Luthari dialect. Ancient form. Translation accuracy. 34%. "Try it," Rowan urged. The officer adjusted the settings and held it out toward the girl. She hesitated, then spoke a few careful words into it. The translator paused, processing, then produced a halting, broken English sentence. Please. Not them. They come for me. If I go, end all. Rowan's breath caught. The message was imperfect, but the meaning was clear enough to feel heavy in his chest. You mean, if they take you, something bad will happen? To everyone? Rowan asked slowly. The translator couldn't keep up, but the girl nodded with such certainty that Rowan's stomach tightened. One of the officers frowned. This could be a trick. She could be distracting us. Rowan shook his head. No. Look at her. She's terrified. Before more could be said, the comm came alive again, this time with a voice that was not the captain's. It was deep, cold, and layered with static. Research vessel Horizon Star. Surrender the Luthari female, and you will not be harmed. The words echoed through the docking bay like a stone dropping into still water. Rowan glanced at the girl. She had gone pale, her hands curling into fists. She shook her head rapidly, whispering something that didn't need a translator. Don't. The captain's voice followed, calm but firm. Identify yourself and your vessel. You have no authority here. There was a pause. Then the alien voice returned, sharper. You have 10 minutes. The comm went silent. The girl turned to Rowan again. Her eyes glistened, and her voice was soft but urgent as she spoke into the translator. They destroy not only me, your kind. Also, the meaning hit Rowan hard. She wasn't just running for her own life. Somehow her capture meant danger for all humans. The officers began guiding her toward the med bay, but this time Rowan stepped between them. Wait, you heard her. We need to know why before we hand her over. That's for the captain to decide, one officer said. But Rowan could tell neither of them was fully convinced anymore. As they argued, the girl tugged lightly on Rowan's sleeve, pulling him a few steps aside. She leaned closer and whispered something in her language, words too quick for the translator to catch. Then she pointed again to the metallic disc now hidden in Rowan's pocket. Her eyes said everything. Protect it. The ship shuddered again, this time more violently. Somewhere in the distance, Rowan could hear the faint thud of weapon systems charging. The enemy vessel wasn't waiting for the full 10 minutes. The girl gave him one last look, part fear, part trust, before the officers led her away. Rowan stood there in the dim light of the docking bay, the weight of the small disc heavy in his pocket, and the echo of her plea in his mind. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than just one frightened passenger. And if she was right, the entire human race might be in danger. The med bay on the Horizon Star was brighter than Rowan liked. White lights glowed from the ceiling, and the air smelled faintly of antiseptic. Machines hummed softly as they scanned the girl's vitals, their screens filling with readings in both human and alien symbols. Rowan stood near the door, watching. The security officers had allowed him to stay only because the ship's translator still had trouble understanding her words. She sat on a narrow bed, her silver robe gathered around her, hair falling like pale silk over her shoulders. Her eyes stayed fixed on him, as if she feared he might leave and never return. The head medic, a tall man with silver streaks in his beard, adjusted the translator's settings. Let's try a direct mind link, he said. It's safe, just a short-range neural sync. Might improve accuracy. Rowan nodded. The girl tilted her head curiously at the small headset the medic brought forward, but she didn't resist. When he placed it gently over her temples, a soft tone filled the air. Lights on the translator shifted from red to green. All right, the medic said. Speak slowly. The girl took a breath and began to speak in her flowing musical language. The translator paused for a heartbeat before the words emerged in soft, broken English. My name Sarai, daughter of the Luthari sovereign. Rowan blinked. Sovereign, as in ruler? The translator hesitated, then answered for her. Yes, Princess. The officers exchanged quick glances, but Rowan stayed focused on her. Princess Sarai, why are they after you? Her voice grew quieter. Our world, no army, protected, by treaty, enemy, break treaty, want to erase me, so no hope. Erase you? Rowan frowned. Why would that end hope? She paused, searching for the right words. Because if I live, I tell truth. Truth makes humans important. Makes galaxy listen. Rowan felt a strange chill at her words. Important how? Sarai's gaze dropped to the floor, and her voice was almost a whisper as the translator struggled to keep up. You humans carry gift in your blood, cure for plague. Plague they make. If I reach my world, I prove humans can save billions. The medic's eyebrows rose. That would explain why they're willing to cross into restricted space for her. Rowan was still processing. So, if they kill you, no one will believe us? Humanity stays irrelevant. Sarai nodded. And plague will spread. Soon. To Earth. A low rumble shivered through the floor. The enemy ship again. The captain's voice came over the comm. All crew, stand by. Hostile vessel now within. Attack range! The security officers moved toward the door. We have to get her to a secure chamber, one said. No. Rowan stepped forward. If what she says is true, the safest place is with people who believe her. If she's locked away, they can still destroy the ship and everyone on it. The medic hesitated. He's right. If they're after her specifically, they'll try boarding. The lights flickered once. A faint vibration rattled the medbay walls. The enemy was testing their defenses. Rowan turned back to Sarai. You said humans can stop this plague. How? And how do you know? She looked into his eyes for a long moment, then reached toward the metallic disc still in his pocket. Her fingers brushed his hand as she guided it out into the light. This proof, she said. Inside code. Shows. Match between human blood and cure. Rowan turned the disc over in his hand. It was warm, almost alive, and the glowing line pulsed faster now, as if it sensed the tension in the air. The medic stepped closer. If this is true, we need to transmit that data immediately. Sarai shook her head sharply. No. Enemy control many channels. Only my people can make all listen. Only if I alive. The security officers shifted uneasily. One of them spoke quietly into his communicator, no doubt updating the captain. Then the comm crackled with a new message, the same cold, alien voice from before. 3 minutes. Surrender the Luthari, or we will fire. Sarai's hands clenched in her lap. She didn't need a translator to understand that. Rowan looked at her, then at the medic. We can't give her up. If what she says is true, humanity's future is tied to hers. The medic sighed. Convincing the captain in 3 minutes won't be easy. Sarai leaned forward slightly, speaking in her language. The translator hesitated, then said, You help me, even if dangerous? Rowan didn't hesitate. Yes. Something softened in her eyes. A quiet trust that hadn't been there before. The floor suddenly shook harder, and the lights above flickered again. A louder alarm began to wail. The captain's voice came through, clipped and urgent. All hands, prepare for possible hull breach. Hostile vessel charging weapons. The medic swore under his breath. That's it. We either get her hidden, or we brace for impact. But Rowan wasn't thinking about hiding. He was thinking about the disc in his hand, about the truth it carried, and about the enemy outside who wanted it buried forever. He looked at Sarai again. "If I can get you to the comm arrays, can you send this proof to your people?" Her answer came without pause. "Yes, but need time." Time. That was the one thing they didn't have. Rowan glanced at the nearest security officer. "You want to save this ship? Help me get her to the comm arrays. Otherwise, the enemy wins even if they destroy us." The officer hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. "Fine. But if the captain, he'll thank us later," Rowan cut in. The medic quickly removed the MindLink headset from Sarai and handed her a small, portable translator. "You'll need this if you get separated." Another vibration shook the medbay, stronger this time. Somewhere deep in the ship, metal groaned under the stress. Sarai rose to her feet, her robe swaying around her legs. She stood straighter now, her fear tempered by determination. Rowan tightened his grip on the disc. "Let's move." The three of them, Rowan, Sarai, and the security officer, slipped out of the medbay just as the first distant thud of enemy weapons struck the ship's shields. The corridor lights turned red, and the emergency sirens wailed louder. Ahead, the path to the comm arrays wound through 2 decks of exposed maintenance corridors. If they were going to make it, they'd have to move fast and hope the enemy didn't find them first. The corridors of the Horizon Star shook with each distant impact. The enemy's weapons were still hitting the shields, but the sound carried through the walls like a heartbeat of war. Rowan, Sarai, and the lone security officer moved quickly, keeping low as emergency lights flashed red along the ceiling. They passed crew members rushing in the opposite direction, some carrying tools, others weapons. Every face was tight with tension. "Deck 12, comm array access," the officer said, checking his wrist console. "We can cut through the maintenance shaft here." A sudden boom shook the deck so hard that Rowan stumbled. Sarai reached out instinctively to steady him, her silver robe swaying with the motion. The officer tapped his communicator. "Command, this is Officer Hale. We're moving the—" His voice cut off when a sharp burst of static filled his earpiece. The ship's comm system had gone dark. Rowan frowned. "Jammed?" "Looks like it," Hale muttered. "They're trying to cut us off from the bridge." That made sense to Rowan. If the enemy could isolate them, they could board more easily. He glanced at Sarai. Her eyes darted to every sound, but she kept moving forward. She didn't seem frightened now, only focused. They reached the maintenance shaft, a narrow passage that ran behind the main decks. It smelled faintly of engine oil, and the low hum of power conduits ran through the walls. Halfway through, a voice crackled over the ship's emergency broadcast channel, one of the few systems still working. It was the captain. "All crew. This is Captain Loran. We have received an ultimatum from the hostile vessel. They demand we surrender our passenger, identified as a Luthari female, within 5 minutes. Failure to comply will result in full assault." Rowan slowed, listening. The captain's voice was calm, but there was a strain in it. "For the safety of this crew, we may have no choice but to—" The message cut abruptly, leaving only static. Rowan felt his stomach twist. "He's going to hand you over," he said quietly to Sarai. Her face hardened. She shook her head. "If I go, your people die." The portable translator's voice was small, but the weight in her tone was unmistakable. Hale glanced between them. "If the captain orders it, we're supposed to obey." Rowan met the officer's eyes. "And if you obey, you'll be helping the enemy win. You heard what she said. This isn't just about her." The officer hesitated. Another deep rumble shook the deck. Somewhere above, metal screeched. Sarai stopped walking and turned to face them both. Her voice was low, but the translator carried it clearly. "They not want me only. They want humans never rise. Humans can do what they cannot." Rowan frowned. You mean the cure? She nodded. Yes, but more. You, humans, can fight without fear, can change other worlds. My people know. That is why they fear you. Rowan had no answer. The idea was too big, too sudden, but he could see the truth in her eyes. They moved again, faster now. The maintenance shaft opened into a wide corridor, its floor lit by the soft blue glow of the comm array chamber ahead. Relief flickered in Rowan's chest until a shape stepped out from the shadows. It was another crew member, but his stance was wrong, too stiff, too controlled. And in his hand was a small black device pulsing with red light. Hale reacted instantly. "Move!" he shouted, pushing Rowan and Sarai to the side. The device hit the floor and burst with a sharp flash. Rowan's ears rang as a wave of static. Energy rippled through the corridor, killing the lights and plunging them into darkness. Rowan blinked hard, trying to adjust his eyes. When the spots cleared from his vision, the crew member was gone, but so was the soft blue glow from the comm array chamber. They took it offline, Hale growled. We'll have to restart it manually. Before Rowan could reply, the emergency broadcast channel came alive again, but this time it wasn't the captain. It was the enemy's cold voice. Horizon Star, you are out of time. Sarai gripped Rowan's arm tightly. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried more weight than any alarm. They will come inside now. As if on cue, the deck beneath them shuddered violently. Somewhere deep in the ship, the sound of tearing metal echoed. The kind of sound that only meant one thing. They've breached the hull, Hale said grimly. Rowan's mind raced. If the enemy reached Sarai before they got the comms back online, everything would be over. The disk in his pocket felt heavier than ever. We can't fight them head on, Rowan said. But we can finish what we started. Sarai met his gaze. Then, hurry. The three of them ran into the comm chamber. The tall control panel stood in the center, dark and lifeless. Hale moved to the console and began working. It'll take a few minutes to power up. Keep watch. Rowan positioned himself by the door. The corridor outside was silent, except for the faint hum of the ship's failing systems. Sarai stayed close, watching him. There was no fear in her now, only determination. Another tremor rolled through the deck. The enemy was inside the ship, now. Somewhere close. Rowan tightened his grip on the side rail, every nerve on edge. Behind him, Hale's voice was tense. Almost there. Just hold them off if they come. Rowan nodded. From somewhere in the corridor, the sound of footsteps began to echo. Slow, heavy, getting closer. Sarai's hand found his sleeve. They will not stop. Rowan glanced at her, then at the comm console still dark. Then neither. Will we? The footsteps grew louder. The enemy was almost here, and Rowan knew that in the next few minutes, everything would be decided, not just for the Horizon Star, but for humanity itself. The footsteps outside the comm chamber slowed to a stop. Rowan stood near the doorway, every muscle tight, listening. The corridor beyond was dim, lit only by faint red emergency strips along the floor. Behind him, Officer Hale worked quickly at the console, trying to bring the comm systems back online. Sarai stood between them, her eyes fixed on the shadowy entrance. Then came the sound, a sharp hiss, followed by the low hum of something powering up. Rowan knew that sound. It was a weapon. He leaned closer to Sarai. "Stay behind me," whispered. A tall figure stepped into view. The enemy soldier's armor was black, polished, and seamless, as if it were part of his body. A dark visor hid his face, and in his hand was a sleek weapon that glowed faintly at the barrel's edge. The soldier spoke in a low, harsh voice, the words unfamiliar but cold. Sarai stiffened. She didn't need a translator to know the meaning. "Says, give me and live," her small translator device whispered. Rowan didn't move. Tell him, no. Sarai met his gaze for a moment, then turned to the soldier and spoke in her own language, her voice clear and defiant. The soldier's posture stiffened. Without warning, he raised his weapon. Rowan stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between Sarai and the threat. Before the soldier could fire, a sharp crack rang out from behind the console. Officer Hale had pulled a compact stun launcher from his belt and fired. The energy bolt hit the soldier square in the chest, sending him crashing against the wall with a burst of sparks. Not today, Hale muttered, lowering the launcher. Rowan quickly checked the doorway, but more footsteps were echoing from farther down the corridor. That won't stop them for long. Hale's fingers flew across the console. Then we better move faster. I've got power flowing. Now we just need the data. Rowan looked at Sarai. The disk. How do we use it? She stepped forward and took the metallic disk from Rowan's pocket. The glowing line across its surface pulsed faster as she touched it, responding to her presence. She placed it on a small platform built into the console. Instantly, the screens came alive with streams of alien symbols and human text. The ship's system translated fragments, revealing complex data chains. This proof, Sarai explained, shows humans can cure the plague. My father promised your people place in council if I return with this. Rowan frowned. So this is more than medicine. It's a seat at the table. Sarai nodded. Yes, but if I die, they say, humans worthless. No place, no cure. The weight of her words settled on him. This wasn't just about saving lives. It was about shaping the future of humanity in the galaxy. Hale's voice broke his thoughts. Transmission ready. But it's going to take at least a minute to send. That's a long time right now. A loud metallic clang echoed down the hall. The enemy was cutting through the corridor door. Hold them off, Hale said without looking up. Rowan tightened, his grip on a metal pipe he had grabbed earlier from the maintenance shaft. It wasn't much against armored soldiers, but it was all he had. Sarai looked at him, her voice quiet but steady. You could still leave? Save yourself. Rowan almost laughed. And let them win? Not a chance. The door outside sparked and shook as cutting tools bit through the metal. The glow of molten steel lit the hallway. Hale worked faster. 30 seconds. Rowan positioned himself at the entrance. Sarai, stay low. Hale, tell me when it's done. The sound of the cutting stopped. For a moment, the hallway was silent. Then the door was kicked inward with a crash, and 3 armored soldiers surged inside. Rowan swung the pipe at the first one, catching him across the visor and staggering him back. The second soldier raised his weapon, but Sarai, from her, crouched. Position threw a small device from her robe that exploded in a flash of bright light, blinding them for a heartbeat. Rowan didn't waste it. He lunged forward, striking again, driving them back toward the doorway. 10 seconds, Hale shouted. The third soldier pushed past the others, grabbing at Sarai. Rowan turned, blocking the soldier's arm and shoving him hard against the wall. The pipe bent in his hands from the impact. Transmission complete, Hale called. Sarai snatched the disc from the console. Now, we run! They didn't need to be told twice. The 3 of them bolted from the chamber, leaving the stunned soldiers behind. The ship shook violently again as another blast from the enemy hit the shields. Where to? Hale asked as they raced down the corridor. Escape pods, Rowan said without thinking. If the transmission got through, they'll know. We just need to survive long enough for help to arrive. Sarai glanced at him as they ran. Help will come, but enemy will not stop until I gone. Rowan knew she was right. And if the enemy had boarded this far, they wouldn't just be after her anymore. They would destroy the Horizon Star entirely. Still, the proof was out there now. Even if they didn't survive, humanity's place in the galaxy had a chance. As they turned another corner, the sound of boots followed close behind. The enemy was still coming, and Rowan realized the fight was only going to get harder from here. The Horizon Star groaned under the strain of another enemy strike. Panels rattled, and faint smoke curled from the ceiling vents as warning lights blinked red. Rowan, Sarai, and Hale ran down the narrow corridor, the sound of heavy boots following. Close behind, the deck shuddered again, making them stumble. "Pod Bay is just ahead," Hale said between breaths. Rowan didn't slow down. "Move!" They turned the final corner and stopped dead. The blast door to the escape pods was sealed tight, a glowing red lock showing it was in emergency lockdown. Hale cursed under his breath. "They must have locked it from the bridge." "Can you override it?" Rowan asked. Hale dropped to one, knee beside the control panel, pulling out a small toolkit from his belt. "I can try, but it'll take time." Rowan glanced back. The distant thud of boots was getting louder. "We don't have much of that." Sarai's eyes scanned the corridor. Then she stepped toward a small service hatch in the wall. "Maintenance?" "Crawl space," she said quickly. "Leads to other side." Rowan hesitated. "You sure?" "Yes," she said firmly. "Used once before. Short, but narrow." Without waiting for agreement, she pulled the hatch open and slipped inside. Rowan followed, ducking into the tight space. The crawlspace walls were lined with cables and warm from the ship's systems. Hale squeezed in last, closing the hatch. Behind them, just as voices echoed from the main corridor. They moved quickly, the space forcing them to crawl on hands and knees. The sound of the ship's engines was louder here, a constant low rumble that vibrated through the metal floor. "How far?" Rowan asked. "Few turns," Sarai replied, crawling ahead. "Then drop to pod controls." They reached a vertical shaft with a ladder. Sarai went down first, Rowan following close, with Hale behind. The shaft ended in a small control room overlooking the escape pod bay from above. Through the window, Rowan could see 4 pods still docked, their small hatches closed. But enemy soldiers were already moving into the bay, checking each pod. "They're making sure we can't leave," Hale whispered. Sarai's gaze fell to a panel on the wall. "This room has pod release controls." Rowan stepped to the console. "What happens if we trigger them?" "Pods launch empty. Maybe distract them." Rowan's lips curved into a grim smile. "Then let's make some noise." Hale began typing rapidly, bypassing the safety locks. "All right. Triggering launch sequence." A moment later, alarms blared through the bay. The pods shuddered and one by one shot out into space. The enemy soldiers spun toward the sudden movement, shouting in confusion. Rowan didn't wait for them to recover. "Move while they're distracted!" They slipped down the ladder into the bay, hugging the shadows. One pod near the far wall still had its docking clamps engaged. Untouched in the chaos, they sprinted toward it, but one of the soldiers spotted them. "There!" he shouted. Rowan reached the pod hatch first, slamming the entry button. The hatch slid open and Sarai scrambled inside. Hale followed, diving for the controls. Rowan was halfway in when the soldier's weapon fired, striking the wall beside him with a burst of sparks. He threw himself inside, hitting the door close switch. The hatch sealed shut. "They'll blast us before we undock," Hale warned. Sarai shook her head. "Not if we use, cloak system." Rowan blinked. "The pod has a cloak?" "Yes," she said. "Prototype. My father gave, in case of danger." Hale's fingers flew over the controls. "Cloak engaged. Releasing clamps. Now!" The pod detached from the ship, the sudden weightlessness making Rowan's stomach drop. Through the small viewport, he could see the massive shape of the Horizon Star shrinking as they drifted away. A moment later, enemy ships swarmed around the cruiser. But their pods slipped unnoticed into the darkness, hidden by the cloak. For several minutes, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the pod's systems. Rowan finally broke the silence. Where do we go now? Sarai's eyes were fixed on the stars. There is a relay station, 2 hours from here. If we reach it, we can send message to all council worlds. Everyone will see proof. Hale frowned. Won't they be monitoring comm lines? They could intercept. That's the point, Sarai said quietly. If they hear, they will know they fail. Rowan studied her face. You want them to know you're still alive? She nodded. If they think I live, they must stop attack. They fear what I carry. Hale adjusted the course. Setting heading for the relay station. But Rowan wasn't entirely convinced. And if they come after us anyway? Then, Sarai said softly, we run until they can't follow. The pod glided through the dark, stars drifting past like cold fire. Rowan kept his eyes on the sensors, scanning for pursuit. For a while, it seemed they might actually make it. Then a faint blip appeared on the screen. One ship, then another. Then 3 more. They've found us, Hale said grimly. Rowan's jaw tightened. Can we outrun them? Not for long, Hale admitted. Sarai leaned forward, pointing to a dense cluster of asteroids ahead. There, we hide there. Cloak, plus rocks. Maybe lose them. The pod dove toward the asteroid field. Chunks of rock tumbled slowly through space, some as small as houses, others the size of mountains. The enemy ships followed, closing the gap. Rowan gripped the side rail as the pod weaved between jagged stones. The larger asteroids cast deep shadows, hiding them from view. One enemy ship drew too close and clipped a rock, spinning off course, in a shower of debris. The others slowed, wary of the dangerous terrain. Finally, the sensor screen cleared. The pursuing ships were gone. Rowan let out a slow breath. That was close. Sarai smiled faintly. Not close, just enough. Hale adjusted the course again. Relay station in 90 minutes. Let's hope we get there before anyone else finds us. Rowan glanced once more at the dark expanse outside. Somewhere out there, fleets were moving, political decisions were being made, and lives hung in the balance. But for now, in this small hidden pod, 3 people carried the hope of 2 worlds, and Rowan knew the real fight was still ahead. The asteroid field stretched ahead like a frozen ocean of stone. The pod moved carefully, weaving between massive chunks of rock. Rowan's hands gripped the side rails tightly, eyes darting between the sensors and the viewport. Every shadow could hide an enemy ship. Sarai sat beside him, the metallic disc clutched in her lap. Her eyes were calm now, though the weight of the mission rested on her shoulders. She adjusted the portable translator, ensuring it was ready for the relay station. Hale, sitting at the control console, monitored the sensors. We've lost them for now, he said, though his voice lacked certainty. But they won't give up easily. Rowan exhaled slowly. Then we make sure we're ready when they come back. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then, far ahead, a small structure floated in the void. The relay station. Its surfaces gleamed faintly in the light. Of distant stars, a lone beacon of hope. Almost there, Hale said. I'll dock manually. The automated system might attract attention. Rowan nodded. Do it carefully. One mistake, and we're exposed. The pod approached the station. Its docking clamps extended, gripping the hull with soft clicks. Sarai's fingers trembled as she lifted the metallic disc to the central interface of the station. The glowing line pulsed rapidly, sensing the new environment. This is it, she whispered. If I connect, all council worlds will see the proof. Hale stepped back. You sure about this? Sarai nodded. It's the only way. Everyone must know humans can help. Everyone must know they cannot erase hope. Rowan placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. Then let's do it. Sarai slid the disc into the interface. The station's screens flickered to life, displaying streams of data, alien symbols translating into universal language, patterns matching human, biology to the cure for the plague. A small green light blinked steadily. Transmission was in progress. Outside, sensors picked up movement. Enemy ships emerged from behind distant asteroids, closing in fast. "They found us," Hale muttered. "Not much time." Sarai's eyes didn't leave the console. "We finish, then run." A volley of energy beams struck the station's shields, causing sparks to fly across the hull. The pod shook violently, alarms blaring. Rowan braced himself. "Almost done," Sarai called. Her fingers flew over the interface. The disk pulsed brighter with each passing second. The enemy ships fired again. One beam struck near the pod, sending a jolt through the hull. Rowan grabbed Sarai instinctively, shielding her. As the pod rocked, then, across the station's screens, the message spread. Bright symbols and universal translations flickered onto view in every Council world's communication network. A map lit up, showing plague-affected sectors, human contributions, and the proof of the cure. Sarai's voice, through the translator, echoed across the network. "I am Sarai of the Luthari. The humans carry hope. They can save lives. Do not ignore them." Rowan felt a chill as he watched the symbols ripple across the screen. Every Council world would see it. Every decision-maker would know the truth. The enemy fleet hesitated. One of their commanders, visible on Rowan's sensors, as a tall, dark silhouette paused mid-maneuver. The transmission had reached them. "They can't ignore it," Sarai said softly. "They fear the truth." Hale adjusted the pod's shields. "They're pulling back. For now. But we can't stay here." Rowan glanced at the stars beyond. "Then we leave. Fast." Sarai removed the disk from the interface and placed it safely in her robe. "Proof, now everywhere, but we must survive to help more." The pod undocked carefully, moving away from the relay station. The enemy fleet tracked them for a moment, then retreated into the darkness of space. Their attacks slowed, as if acknowledging that the broadcast had changed the balance of power. Rowan let out a long breath. "We did it." Sarai looked at him, a faint smile breaking across her face. "Yes. We saved hope." Hale shook his head in disbelief. "I never thought I'd see this day. They actually pulled back." Rowan studied the stars. "The galaxy just changed because of her. And humans." Sarai's voice was soft now. "Thank you for trusting me." Rowan smiled faintly. "No, thank you. You trusted us, enough to risk everything." They moved further from the relay station, heading toward a safe route for the Horizon Star. Rowan glanced back, seeing the faint glow of the station fading behind them. Somewhere out there, the message was spreading, and every world would know the truth. Sarai leaned back, looking at the stars streaking past the pod's window. "I never thought humans could do so much so quickly." "You're part of it, too," Rowan said. "Without your courage, none of this happens." The pod's internal lights flickered softly. Hale glanced at the controls. "Course set. For home. We've got time to recover before they come back." Rowan felt a weight lift from his chest. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to relax. They had survived, transmitted the proof, and humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer uncertain. Sarai looked at him again, her eyes reflecting the stars. "Promise. We will continue. Help more. Teach. Share." Rowan nodded. "We will. Together." For a long moment they sat in silence, letting the hum of the pod and the streaking stars fill the void around them. They had faced an enemy fleet, a conspiracy to erase hope and the weight of two worlds, and yet they had prevailed. Outside, the galaxy continued its slow dance. But now, humanity had a place among the stars, not because of weapons or power, but because of courage, trust, and the truth Sarai had carried with her. Rowan glanced at the young princess. You know, one day, people will tell the story of this moment. Sarai smiled faintly. Maybe. But the moment, we remember it ourselves. That is enough. And as the pod glided silently into the endless darkness of space, a new chapter began. One of hope, unity, and the promise that no one could erase the spark of life and courage when truth was on its side. The galaxy had changed forever.